So, you know what, let's finish this. I know there's a winter event thing coming up. Someone told me there's a winter event, yes. My European accent slipped through once again. The winter event is coming up. A winter event is coming up, which has, like, some new skins for some characters. I think maybe some new MVP animations, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll delay the last bit until then, because, you know, I can just do that, and then because this one has, like, not as many things in it. But then I was like, you know what, no, I feel impatient. Ow, goddammit. I feel impatient, so I'm not going to delay it. I'm just going to do the 5 that are left right now, and then maybe once the winter event comes out, we can do that one also, because I can just make more videos. I can just, like, I have that power. This is my this is my spam and do whatever the hell I want yap channel. So I can just make multiple videos. So, ow, I sprained my thumb on this hand by clipping it through my forehead. No, I sprained my thumb on this hand because I stumbled in the living room, and then, like, as I was falling, my hand caught the couch, and my thumb just got bent, like, all, like, real far down towards my palm in a way that is not really built to do. So now it's sprained. I'm wearing a little brace thing that you can't see on my hand, but it's sprained, and it's swollen, and it's sore, and it hurts. And I can't play any video game that requires a controller because I can't use my thumb, which, you know, that's no fun. So this is also... Ow! This... God damn it. Put a hand down, Skyen. So this is also in part... I need to gesture just with this one now. This is also in part just me distracting myself from the pain. Because today I had actually planned to record a bunch of gameplay footage for a thing. I had planned to do a whole bunch of things, but my hand hurts all the time, and I'm taking ibuprofen. And I also ran out of my ADHD meds, and I've been out of them for a couple of days. I've got them back now. They are once again doing what they're supposed to do inside my head. But it's been, you know, it's been rough times in Mental Central, just for a couple of days there, because, like, sprained hand plus unmedicated ADHD all of a sudden, plus, you know, bad times. So I want to finish this up and talk about the Marvel characters. And then, when more heroes release, when more skins get added to the game, if you guys still want to hear me yap about them, I can continue to yap about them. That is no problem whatsoever. So let's start with the Punisher. So, I've seen the Punisher, obviously, because he tends to be the model that's in all of the demonstrations of abilities and the various things. And oh my fucking god, this is so boring. This sucks so bad. So again, not a comics expert. I don't know where Frank Castle is in the comics right now. The Frank that I know, right, from the times that I've read The Punisher or been engaged with anything that has to do with him, is, like, what he isn't is a fucking Gears of War character. Because that's what this is. This is a Gears of War character. This is Marcus fucking Phoenix. This enormous, hulking, giant, like, smuggling cantaloupes inside of his arms. Absolute beefcake motherfucker, all up in militarized tech gear and all that. This, to me, is a Gears of War character. And when I think of Frank Castle specifically, I think of someone who is fucked up and broken. Right? And I don't know, maybe this is like the Punisher 2099, some kind of alternate future version, but I think of like a former, they move which conflict he was in from time, like he used to be a Vietnam War veteran, I think, and then at this point he'll probably be Iraq War, maybe, like a fucked up, broken veteran of war who was desperately traumatized, lost his family, lost everything he cares about, and at this point only really has the vengeance left, right? Like, only really has this self-destructive, painful, miserable crusade of violence left, right? A guy who's fundamentally kind of a wreck, right? Like a guy who's not healthy, whether mentally or physically, just like who is just not doing well, right? That to me is that to me is the fundamental aspect of the Punisher, is that this is a man who has all this internal pain, misery, suffering, and turmoil, and he's externalizing it in an effort to try in some way to deal with it or turn it towards some kind of purpose, right? And what he does with that is, like, he hunts down and murders anyone that he deems to be a criminal, right? Like, he's supposed to be kind of fucked up, and this does not look like that. at all. Like, let's be clear. If you are taking that, like, if you're that much on gear, right? Like, if you're taking that many steroids as part of your CrossFit regimen, you're definitely not okay, right? Like, you're definitely not doing well. You've got some issues inside of you that maybe you should work out in therapy. But this Frank Castle doesn't. He looks like he's designed to look like the Doomslayer, right? He's designed to look like shooty bang bang Mac. Like, ultra kill gun violence man number 48, right? This is, and again, I don't know, maybe the Punisher is closer to this in most of his appearances, and I just caught a run where they took a different, maybe this is what he looks like nowadays, and this is the thing that everyone likes about the Punisher. I don't like any part of this. And this is also sort of running up against, I have a long-standing hatred of the sort of military tactical aesthetic that has sort of dominated a lot of culture, ever since the rise of games like Call of Duty. And that's all very much on display with Dear Frank here. Like, all of this fucking, like, yeah, like Mall Ninja tactical military man gear, right? And, like, this is the kind of thing, I think this could be fun if it was more 90s. And that's something I don't say about anything in comics very often, is because, like, the 90s fucking sucked. Very broadly speaking, bad time for comics, the 90s. Like, there were some good things happening, but for the most part, like, is the era of Rob Liefeld and Ultra Kill and, like, whatever the fuck else he made up, and Shatterstar, and, like, super hyper edge and things being badass and cool and badass and killing and murder and like as the baseline set of emotions. And I think, like, but there is also a certain cheesy charm to certain aspects of that period. Like, even I, as someone who hated that period, I do have a certain amount of nostalgia for it. If this leaned more, because it's almost there, right? Like, I want to sit here and be, oh, it's an homage to that specific kind of, like, 90s hyper ultra mega violence, guns, bang bang, pouches on everything. I want to see it as that, but I can't, because it's not cheesy enough. Like, if in order to really be the 90s thing, like, you would need to have, like, extra, even more, like, rendering on Frank's face. You would need to, like, he would need to have just, like, pouches strapped around, like, his wrist and around his biceps and around, like, every single available limb. Just pouches. Do they do anything? No, just pouches. And it would need to be more bright and colorful. That's the other thing about the 90s, is that for all of the sort of, like, yeah, fucking edgelord guns and muscles, yeah, it was still very colorful, and Frank, like, well, the Punisher kind of can't be, I guess. Like, then I would see, like, oh, okay, this is like, we're doing a thing, right? We're doing a thing, we're doing a bit, about, like, oh yeah, the 90s, and, like, that was when everyone had, like, a million pouches that don't do anything. But this is too tactical. This is too much of that era. This is too Call of Duty. This is too Ghost Recon. This is too Warzone, right? Maybe not Ghost Recon, but it's too much in that aesthetic. It's too much Gears of War. This feels like it's taking itself too seriously for me. And it's a personal thing, right? Like, because there are people who enjoy this. Like, and I will say, I see the charm of Gears of War characters in Gears of War, right? Like, because these, like, super roided up, like, mega chunky, huge guy, like, body types and stuff, that was all constructed, like, in the same way that it works for stuff like 40K, right? Like, as Space Marines being these enormous brick shithouse, fuck's sake, Space Marines being these enormous brick shithouse dudes. Like, that makes sense within the context of that aesthetic universe and what it's trying to do. Within the context, would you stop flexing? And, like, if your shoulders are so fucked up, see a massage therapist. In the context of those things, like, those designs kind of work. In the context of Marvel Rivals, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I can see the argument that, like, okay, this makes Frank kind of unique. Like, I do think he might be the beefiest guy, short of Venom, I guess. But, like, the beefiest normal human guy, right? Like, not like the Hulk. and such, but like in terms of like being a normal human guy, like he's definitely beefier than Hawkeye. And Black Panther. Yeah, like they've made an effort to make him exceptionally beefy for what he is, which, like, okay, that's something. Like, I can kind of accept that maybe that's what they're going for, but, like, I like Frank Castle a little bit more as, like, this dude who's a little bit schlubby, who's a little bit fucked up because he's not taking... Ow! For fuck's sake. Because he's not taking care of himself, right? Like, he's not eating well, he's not, like, bathing very often, he doesn't really care what happens to him because he's so fucked up on, like, murderous nihilism that all he can really think about is, like, revenge and killing the people who killed his family. Like, that to me is Frank Castle, right? Like, that's the character of him. And that would be the version of him I would want to play. I can see that parts of that would definitely be too dark for Marvel Rivals, like that sort of hyper... Would you stop with the fucking flexing? That like really sort of dour misery guts, fucked up my wife is dead guy could be too dark and kind of too miserable for a game like Marvel Rivals. I can see the idea that they need him to be a little bit more of our cartoon character to fit in here, but still, it just doesn't feel like Punisher to me. Again, it's misaligned expectations, right? Again, maybe Punisher is just like this in the comics now, in which case... But yeah, like, I remember the last time I read a Punisher comic. I have no idea when this was, I don't know what run it was, but what I remember from it was this sequence of Punishers living in, like, an apartment building. And it's in a miserable part of town, and this apartment building is being, like, menaced by, like, gang members and, like members of crime gangs and shit like that. And Frank goes out and kills them all, right? And he, throughout the whole thing of killing them, is just completely emotionally dead inside. Because that's who Frank is. He's emotionally dead inside, right? And you get this, like, these cuts through, like, the reactions of the various inhabitants of the apartment building, sort of coping with what Frank has done, right? Like, and sort of a lot of them seeing him as like, well, he was the only one who did anything to help us. We've been abandoned by the police. We've been abandoned by the state. We've been abandoned by every safety net that's supposed to protect us or enforce any kind of, like, community in the place we lived in. And he went out with a gun and he fixed it, right? But it seemed, in my memory at least, to sort of be grappling with the emptiness and the nihilism of it, that Frank is like an inevitable response to a system which is fundamentally broken, right? Like that he too is a symptom of the rot, the same rot that produced the criminals that were menacing the building in the first place, right? Just a different expression of it. And I remember that specifically because it made an impression on me, that I thought that was a very interesting way to deal with the Punisher, right? Like a very interesting way to frame him, that it's not just that he's this exceptional hero individual who's doing the hard things the police won't, because if you're alive in 2024, you know that the police absolutely will do what the Punisher does, and they have been doing it, and they do it gleefully and very happily. Unless, of course, there's a mass school shooting of children, in which case they'll stand around outside for 45 minutes just jerking their dicks and playing Candy Crush. But, you know, if it's a black man who needs to be shot in the back, though, like, they are there. They'll have the guns, and they'll have the Punisher logos. Anyway, like, I liked that, and that Frank, like, also was a symptom of the sickness, right? And that he, too, was sick inside because of it. And that even though, like, the violence that he did certainly helped in the moment, it was still just perpetuating this same misery in the long term. Like, I thought that was interesting. So this, to me, just doesn't read like that, right? Like, and that's the most interesting version of the Punisher I remember. This is not that, and so I am disappointed. So there's definitely a personal, this is just not what I want from the Punisher bias. It's just also... Anyway. Oh, there's Punisher 2099. Okay, I'm holding my tongue a little bit here, because I have two immediate reactions to this design. Number one, holy fucking shit, that's so fucking stupid. And number two was, holy fucking shit, that's so fucking awesome. Like, I also looked at this quote, "They call me the Punisher, and I take issue with people who go around murdering other people." Do you? You're the Punisher and you take issue with murdering people? You do? Are you sure? I guess Punisher 2099 is a different kind of guy, but like... Oh my god, that's the thing I was talking about, right? Like, the 90s had a certain kind of charm to them because it was so much. Like, the 90s was maximally everything at all times. Like, the 90s went maximally hard on whatever stupid bullshit it had got going on, right? The Clone Saga sucked in Spider-Man, right? Like, it sucked. It was bad. It was bad storytelling. It sucked. It introduced a whole bunch of shit characters that made a bunch of retcons that didn't work. But I still like Kane, though. Like, I remember as a kid reading the Spider-Man comics with Kane in them, and just, like, him walking around in that fucking, like, blue suit with, like, the wet, sort of chunky web thing all over it, and, like, the torn up cape and ripping people's faces off with his sticking power, like, leaving the mark of Kane upon their face. And I was like... It was dumb, but it was also like, fuck, that's so cool. That is like some shit you doodle in the margins of your fucking notebook in class because you're bored. Well, I have ADHD, so you know. Like that. It was like, it was that specific kind of like over the top cheese ass motherfucking like dumbass edgelord power fantasy for 14-year-olds, and I was a kid at exactly the right age range to be charmed by that. This is kind of that. Like, this is. Like, motherfucker, you're wearing a mask, and then over your mask, you're wearing another different mask, which is like a vice. Like, come the fuck on, man. And your chest is like, oh, yeah. You know how Frank Castle paints like a skull on his chest with paint normally in normal world because of he's the Punisher and he kills people? Well, what if the skull was also a cybernetic metal skull? It's like with glowing red eyes. It's like, this is so stupid, but it kind of fucking rules. That is the most Punisher 2099 as Punisher 2099 I've ever seen. Like, that is the most what if the future as. Like, oh my god, there is actually a real charm to this. This is so dumb. This is so over the top and silly. There's a genuine charm here. I can't help but kind of like this. Like, come on. That's like that. This was on the shelves in Toys R Us in 1999. Like, I swear to God it was. And I probably walked past it. Like, I don't know when. Like, it's from 1993, actually. Yeah, no, it was absolutely on the shelves in 1999. Complete with, like, a little... Oh, my God! Put that gun back up, Frank. Put it back up. Put it back up right now. Show us what you've done, Frank. Show us what you've done. There's a skull on the front! Ow! There's a skull on the front of the fucking gun. The fucking barrels on the eyes. Oh my god, that is so good. Oh no, Frank, I need you to tell me that that's not the case on your normal gun. Oh, please. Yeah, okay. That's just like, but on the fucking the barrel of the gun has a skull. Oh my god. Ow. Oh, that rules. Oh, that is so good. That is unironically amazing. Oh. Oh god. It's just I was talking about him and he held up his gun and then I like glanced at it for just a second and he put it back down and I was like, no, there's no way. I was like, that was not a skull. Surely that was not. And What? Okay, now I'm going hunting. Are there more skulls? Oh my god, yes, actually, a little bit. There's a little bit of imagery of the skull with, like, the eye thing on the kneecaps. There needs to be... Okay, here's my criticism of this skin. More skulls. More little hidden skulls. Like a little skull just on his ass. A little itty-bitty tiny skull, like, in the middle of the skull mask here in the nose. What if that also was a skull? What if there was a skull on the skull? Oh, more I'm Marvel Rivals. If any of the artists, like, I know you work for NetEase, so probably Chinese developers, but if you ever hear this or see that, please just add one little, like, a couple of more little tiny skulls. Just, like, hide them in the texture of the Punisher 2099 skin. Just for me. Just for me. I want that so bad. Because... oh, no. Oh, that rules. I'm sorry. I cannot bring myself to... I could criticize this, right, as being cheesy and way too much and over... Like, it's dumb with the double masks. But I am so charmed by the fucking skull on the end of the gun. That's so stupid. Oh, that's good. Oh, I love that. Unironically, I love that. This is the best Punisher skin. This is the best one. They will never make a bet. Just buy this. Ow. Just buy this one. It's the best one. There won't be a better one. Okay, yeah, let's calm down with something that is just unspeakably boring, because, like I said, this is already, like, 2 Call of Duty for me, right? It's two Gears of War Call of Duty, so then they thought, well, let's make it even more the fuck boring by giving him a basic-ass fucking boring-ass... I think it's a desert camo thing. This is just like, let's take the base skin and make it worse on purpose as a joke, I guess. Because, like, at least... Sorry about that. All that laughing really gummed up my throat. Like, because at least this version has the contrast, right? Like, the sharp contrast between, like, the black primary color and the white skull and all of that. And then this one is like, well, let's just wash all of that shit out and make it look even more shit. So this sucks. How about this one? He was on the Thunderbolts. Yeah, he would have been at some point. Yeah, sure, send this guy against the Hulk, see what happens. He must have fought the Hulk at some point, right? Some comics nerd who knows this shit. Again, I'll do a video about this game with Sir Superhero with Matt. Like, he will know all of the things. A proper video, one with a script and stuff. He must have fought Hulk at some point, like, especially if he was in the Thunderbolts. Like, someone in the comments, let me know how that went for him. Oh no. Okay, sure, right, why not? So this is baseline pretty cool. Like, there's some restraint here that I kind of like. It's still just kind of a Doomslayer armor, right? Like, it's still just kind of, like, big, giant, mega buff man. I was about to say Mega Man, but he looks nothing like Mega Man at all. Mega buff man in, like, big suit. But, like, black and red is a strong color contrast. That kind of always works. It works well with Frank's, like, bloodlust and, like, his killer, like, the fact that he's such a murder killer guy. Well, depending on who's writing him, I suppose. I like it a little bit better in some aspects than the base design, just because it's just a better... Like, if you're gonna put the man in some kind of, like, futuristic, militaristic power armor thing, then do it properly, instead of this bare arms, like, I'm only wearing a chest plate because my enormous guns are immune to guns, right? If you're gonna put him in that kind of armor, right? Again, the Frank that I like is a guy who, like, he'll go out with, like, a big, chunky t-shirt, and then, like, a Kevlar vest under that, but not much else, because, again, he doesn't give a shit about his own life. So this, like, tactical bullet vest thing chest armor piece is, like, it doesn't really work for me. So I kind of like this. Like, this just looks sleeker. Like, he looks like the very boring protagonist of a 2008 FPS that came out on, like, one of the consoles. And, like, 10 people played it. And 5 of them will swear that it's the best game ever and super underrated, actually. But no one has ever talked about it again. That's kind of the vibe here. But that has, like, a aesthetic and a sleekness to it that I just don't really get from the base design. But oh well. Let's see the intros. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That he throws a smoke bomb and then he gets ready to shoot some people with guns. That's I can't say it ain't the Punisher. And it's a very nicely animated bit of smoke, by the way. Maybe slightly low resolution for what it is, but yeah, optimization perhaps. But like some very nicely animated smoke clouds. And he's bursting out of it ready to... Yeah, sure, he shoots a smoke grenade and then he kills people. I guess that makes sense. Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Of course he does. Yeah, like, yeah, okay. He's also War Machine, I guess. He's dual-wielding miniguns and he has a missile battery on. Yeah, I don't like people who go around murdering people. The only way it could be funnier if the miniguns were also skull-shaped. I mean, yeah, for what it is, like, it's not... I feel like this final pose is maybe a little weak, but, like, yeah, no, burst through a wall and just shoot everything with as many guns as possible? Yeah, that makes sense. Especially for that version of him. That's fine, I guess. Okay, let's see. Fire at enemies with adjudication is... Again, the idea that Frank would... Like, well, no, actually, I shouldn't... Again, to me, the image I have in my head of what the Punisher is like, why would he give a shit about the name of the weapon? Because he doesn't give a shit about anything, right? Like, it's... The weapon is just a tool by which he delivers the vengeance, which is the only thing he can think about, right? So why would he call them adjudication and deliverance? That, like, there's literally a character in Thor... Is it Thor Ragnarok? Yeah, Karl Urban's character in Thor Ragnarok, right? Who has... these two guns, these two rifles that he dual wields. And I can't remember, but he names them something stupid, right? Like, and that's the joke, is that's a really cringe, stupid, fake tough guy thing to do, is to name your guns something like big and dramatic because you're just so cool and badass. And it's like, and it's a bit like, really, you're just playing that straight in Marvel Rifles then? I mean, okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense as his mobility ability.
Heavy weapons. I'm in love.
Oh, he just gets to have a turret section. Oh, he's fully doing, like, Bastion shit. Okay. I kind of like that as a thing, like, because, again, Frank, to me, is the guy who would set up a bunch of turrets and, like, mines and tripwires and shit just to kill people more efficiently. Because, like, again... Because he's so singularly focused on just getting people to be dead.
Heavy weapons.
That would be the smoke grenade. Again, nicely animated smoke clouds. Warrior's gaze. Sure. Rocket Raccoon, the Winter Soldier, and Punisher. Okay, sure. And I guess this is the one where he brings out the big missile battery shit.
Judge, jury, executioner!
Yeah, I mean, if you were gonna give him an ultimate in a game like this, I guess it would be this. It's just, I can't help but look at this and go, like, that feels so much like it should be the ult for, like, a character like War Machine, right? Although, who knows if they'll ever add War Machine, because he's just kind of a palette swap of Iron Man in a lot of ways, right? So, I don't know. Let's see. Caught in the crossfire of a mob. This is Frank Castle himself. Thanks to... Oh, no, it's not. Thanks to an experimental serum that vastly extended his lifespan, the Punisher's wars continued into... Oh, so this is, like, literally the Punisher, but he's been doing this for, like, 200 years or whatever? I mean, okay. Sure, like that, yeah, I mean, I guess that's also why he looks so fucking roided out, is because he got a super serum that just... I mean, it will... I'm just gonna throw down a coin here and say that it will have been a version of the fucking Captain America Super Soldier Serum, because there's 9 million versions of the Super Soldier Serum flying around out there. It'll probably have been one of those, but, yeah, who knows. Anyway, Punisher gave me a... Oh, we talked about him for half an hour. I see, okay. Gave me a good bit of unintentional comedy there. But, okay, let's move on to Thor. Oh, that's interesting, actually. All right. So we're doing... Again, I don't know where Thor is in the state of the lore. I'm not 100% sure. Like, let's see. Okay, so this is a Thor who has been exiled to a distant time place. He's been like exiled to a distant timeline. This is punished Thor in a sense. Okay, I get it. Okay. So like classic Thor, old school. He must have that costume, surely. No? Really? He's only got the Love and Thunder one? Of all the movies to make the costume out of, too. But okay. So in the classic Thor costume from like way back in the 60s, right? A lot of that was based in part on sort of a Wagnerian influenced sort of like operatic aesthetic for the old Norse gods, right? Like that's where the winged helmet comes from. That's why like the costuming is the way that it is because it was pulling from a bunch of sources, but in part it was pulling from that Wagnerian like Ride of the Valkyries opera aesthetic for Vikings, right? Like, and that in itself like has very little to do with what Vikings actually looked like. And so that's still here, right? Like we still have the winged helmet. We still have a little bit of that theatricality, but then outside of that, they seem to have tried to go for, I mean, not anything that's closer to what actual Vikings look like, but something that's closer to what the cultural imagination of Vikings is like nowadays. Specifically, like, the sort of big, chunky, sort of, like, chest armor with, like, lined with furs and, like, these big sort of heavy, brutal metal plates and, like, very God of War Ragnarok-ass thing, and, like, the scale mail sort of gesturing at the medieval a little bit. Which, like, okay, that's interesting. Now, I mean, in some ways, a little bit, because, like, the tunic that he wears is, like, yeah, that would be an example of the kind of cut of clothing that actual Vikings would wear. They would wear, like, a tunic, a shirt that's, like, made out of a woolly shirt, right? Like, that's with maybe an undershirt under it. Vikings generally didn't wear fur, right? They didn't go around with, like, huge furs just kind of slung over their back or whatever, or dress in, like, fur cloaks and things. Like maybe occasionally, but that wasn't, like, the general fashion. Not that it matters. Like, what actual realistic, real Norse Vikings look like does not really fucking matter for Thor. Is kind of the point I'm trying to get at, is, like, this version of Thor is, like, it's interesting the ways in which he, as a character, he has tried to reckon with the heritage, right? Like, he's tried to reckon with the reality of Norse mythology, the realities of Norse aesthetics over time. That his design has sort of shifted and vaguely tried to approach sort of pop cultural ideas of Viking aesthetics with time. Where, honestly, I'm sort of a little bit more of the opinion of, like, no, like the cartoon-ass, silly Wagnerian costume from the 60s is, like, I feel like that's more true to Thor as a superhero, as an idea, even more so than, like, the MCU versions. Like, I feel like that hyper-theatrical, I am a space alien who's also a god from the ancient world kind of thing, I feel like that suits that conception of the character better, honestly. And I've always felt like when they try to sort of, like, make it more pop culture Viking-esque, I feel like it weakens it. Like, I feel like it looks less uniquely, distinctly like Thor, the God of Thunder from the Marvel comics, right? And that might just be, like, old head nostalgia talking, to a certain extent. So, like, that this is like a punished Thor, right? This is exiled Thor who was sent to a distant time stream after fighting with Loki or the blah, blah, blah. And he's clearly also an older Thor. That seems to be what the hair being, like, sheer white is gesturing towards. It's like, oh, okay, so, like, that explains the darker colors, like, that there's so much, like, dark and black and, like, really deep dark browns and, like, all of this, like, really brutal, like, grim, po-faced, like, armor with the metal spikes and all of that. Okay, it's because he is a darker Thor who's been exiled from his homeland. He's looking to take revenge. Like, as an expression of that version of the character, I guess it makes sense. I just also feel like this loses a lot of the charm of Thor, right? Like that Thor is this, like, faux ancient English, like, arcane English speaking, I shall best thee in combat, villain. That he's that sort of character. Like doing Shakespeare in the park, right? Like while dressed up in a cape and spandex and running around, like throwing his hammer around to fly. This feels more, again, more generic. Like this, like if they did a God of War Ragnarok mobile game, this feels like it could be a skin from one of those, right? Like it loses what I think is some of the specificity of the Marvel conception of Thor. Which, you know, your mileage may vary. Like, putting that aside, it looks cool. Like, this is a cool version of Thor. The absence of the cape here definitely gives him more of a sense of, like, he's not a show-off, he's not a king, he's not someone who's, like, trying to look important. This is a warrior, he's here to fucking have a fight. That's much more the vibe I get from this version, right? Like, just because it is cut down to, like, armor, gauntlets, no cape, right? Like, nothing theatrical really about him beyond the silliness of being a video game costume. This is a Thor who's, like, here to kick ass, first and foremost, right? And so compare and contrast that with, with the Love and Thunder Thor, right? Who retains a lot more of that cartooniness to him. Doesn't look much like Chris Hemsworth, but again, as we discussed, kind of looks like this game didn't want to pay for likeness rights. Which is, you know, it's a fair call, quite frankly. And yeah, like, I watched Love and Thunder exactly one time, and I remember very little about it, except that I found it really tedious and annoying. So, like, yeah, sure, I guess this is movie accurate. Except even Chris Hemsworth isn't that big. And actually, in terms of proportions... Oh god, it's gonna play the intro again. Fuck off. Okay. I would like to be able to skip that. That would be lovely if I could just skip it. Okay. So look at the size of Thor's head in this skin, right? It's gonna be pretty much the same as it is in his other skins, but pay attention to how big his head feels relative to his body, because here it feels very small indeed, right? And that's a classic character design trick that you'll see in comic books all the time, is like, if you want a muscular guy to look even fucking bigger and even larger and even huger and even more strong and even more muscle, like, then make the head too small in proportion to the rest of the body. You really get to Hulk them up, right? Like, the Hulk does this all the time. Let's actually check if he does this in this game. Because I believe, at least in the Omega form, he definitely would. Yeah, like, you can kind of see that already, that Hulk's head, relative to the size of his body, is tiny. Right, and that's a consistent trick that comic artists have done with the Hulk since always, right? Like, he always has a very small head proportional to his body because it makes him look even bigger and stronger and more roided out and shit like that. But something interesting that the base design does, right? Like, you can see how they use the big, thick mane of hair and the giant wings on the helmet. All of that increases, and I'm doing air quotes here, increases the visual size of his head a little bit, right? Like, it makes the head as a part of the character design a little bit bigger relative to the body, and so it tones down, actually, that I am huge, muscled, ripped guy. It tones that down a little bit relative to just how, especially in the Love and Thunder skin, how chunky and roided out he looks. And another thing that contributes to that is the cape. Nice flash frames, I will grant. Is the cape, right? Like, because we have the normal profile of the shoulders, and now you have this thick cape adding even more bulk, even more weight, even more size to the cape, which again makes the head look proportionally smaller, which makes Thor look proportionally bigger and chunkier. And the hair is, like, controlled in a different way, right? Like, where here it's like a free-flowing mane that's very visible even from the front. Here, because he's got it tied up a lot more, it also doesn't bulk up the size of his head as much, even, like, in profile. And it all, like... So, like, that's an interesting little thing. I wonder how intentional it is, whether they want the Love and Thunder version to look even bigger than the other versions. But it's a fun... I think it's interesting. Shut up. It's something I noticed. God, the fucking repaired hammer. The whole point of Thor Ragnarok was that he didn't need the hammer to be Thor, right? That, like, having the hammer was not... Why doesn't he have... Yeah, like, the point was that he doesn't need the hammer, and then the Russo brothers come along, and it's like, actually, he needs the hammer. He can't be Thor if he doesn't have the hammer. Fuck you, Taika Waititi, and everything you said in that movie. And then Taika Waititi was like, okay, I guess I'll just be charming and trying to be charming and fun and quirky about that, and don't ask about my opinions on Palestine in Thor Love and Thunder. And okay, I guess. Outside of that, I don't have much to say about this costume. The gold kind of annoys me. Like, gold and red is always a strong color scheme. It's been part of Thor's color scheme for a while. I think the way it's applied here, where it's, like, sort of haphazardly painted along the edges and rims of things, and, like, it's... Yeah, it feels visually noisy to me. Like, the color scheme with the gold and the blue and the black and the red, like, that all works reasonably well enough. It's not like it's bad, it's just... It just looks like MMO armor, right? Like, it doesn't really look like an expression of his character in any meaningful kind of way. It's just, here's some cool armor that has gold on it because of... Gold makes it look fancy. Right, so, like, I don't really get much... And again, I don't remember fucking anything from Love and Thunder. I have purged that movie from my memory. For the most part. But, like, here, at least, the costuming does say something about Thor, right? Like, it's, as we talked about, it's punished Thor, it's exiled Thor, it's Thor returning to try and reclaim his homeland from the blah-blah, right? Like, there's some character communication in there that's, like, I don't think is as present in the Love and Thunder skin, but, again, I don't remember enough. Like, maybe if I rewatched the movie, I don't know why I would want to do that, but maybe if I rewatched the movie, I would remember why his costume looks like that, maybe it would mean something. Anyway, Midgard Umber, palette swap. Again, kind of like with the Punisher, this is just like, let's make it more boring, because we take away all of the color. Any sort of visual indication of passion, and we just kind of make him even more kind of dour and grim. And a bit earthy, I guess. Which, you know, this is just the boring Thor. And then there's the Herald of Thunder, which is from Thor 2020. There's Thor, the God King of Asgard, and Thunder, the Burning Herald of Galactus, and to all of this, the Herald King says nay. Wait, was Thor a Herald of Galactus at one point? Is that what this is saying? I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. Damn near everyone has been a fucking Herald of Galactus at one point or another, but... Is this Thor as a Herald of... Ooh. Okay, I fucking dig the cosmic thing on his cape. That's quite nice. That little sort of translucency effect that turns the cape into like a star field. That's pretty cool. That is very cosmic. That's very nice. Outside of that, that's the squarest, flattest head of hair I've seen in a while. It's like an anvil up there. I kind of dig the costume design here a little bit. Again, that's because he's... Oh, fuck. The whole costume has the fucking galaxy. All of the fabric has the galaxy effect on it. It's a simple visual effect. Like, it's not like it's that complicated, but that is pretty cool. I kind of do dig that. I also dig that the hammer has the "Whosoever holds this hammer, if they be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." I do like that as a because he doesn't have that on the base hammer, right? Yeah, no. That's just on this one. I like that. I like that they included that. Like that little bit of iconic sort of old school Thorness. I do think the head, he looks extremely generic and like absolutely nobody with this particular face. But that's kind of fine. I do kind of dig this. Because, like, if he's a Herald of Galactus, right? This, to me, feels like it's sort of evoking the idea of a constellation or stars. It's sort of evoking the idea of the cosmic or the connections of the rainbow bridge between the realms. Like, it feels like there could be be something there. Especially, I like the asymmetry of it. I like that it's not like a perfect triangle sort of outlining his chest. It's like this little slightly askew, unbalanced thing. That's quite visually striking to me, actually. Like that it connects down to like the left side of the loincloth thing. And then over, like that asymmetry again, where like only one side of the cape has like the white siding on it. That's quite visually striking. Again, I don't really know what any of this means. Like, is this the Herald of Galactus Thor? Because that would inform some things about how to read the character design. Or is he the God King of Asgard, which would mean he's like, this is a Thor who has taken over after Odin kind of vibe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about what any of this refers to be able to say, but like, there's a little bit of a slightly sort of toga-ish vibe to this triangular shape over the chest. It has a little bit of that statuesque Greek god thing in over it. The boots kind of undercut that, I think, but I really, if they'd gone with something less sci-fi metallic for the boots, I think this skin would have been kind of perfect, actually. But at a baseline, I genuinely quite like this. I think this looks very striking. I don't know about the face and the hair, but also the fact that the head is so fucking square, that also, like, that gives him a certain uniqueness. It also gives him a stolidness, right? Like, it literally makes him look like someone who's incredibly stubborn and hard to move, right? Like someone who stands in front of things and says, I'll fuck you up, like an immovable object, right? Or an unstoppable force, as you prefer. It does give him a little bit of that aspect, so it does do something for the character design, even if I think it looks a little... I mean, hair is not usually that square on a person's head, but okay. Let's see. Okay, that was almost great. It's the final frame here that doesn't quite land for me. A slightly lower perspective, and we are actually seeing Thor, like, smack the hammer into the ground with a lightning bolt being called down behind him kind of thing. Rather than... Because this feels like we're freezing, like, when he's halfway through the swing, rather than right before the impact. And, like, this would feel, I think, more powerful. It was, like, either at the moment of impact or just the barest split second before it. And I think they could probably have done more with, like, really emphasizing, like, the foreshortening and, like, distortion into the camera to, like, really sell the tremendous power of what he's about to do. The wind-up, though, is cool. Like, I like the not even over-the-shoulder, like, but this, like, frog perspective, like, lower perspective around his hip, as he's, like, just kind of walking forward, casually summoning the hammer, swinging it, and then, like, kablamo. As a little bit of direction, that's genuinely pretty cool. Let's see, the Love and Thunder one. Kind of the same problem, actually. The wind-up, it's a movie scene, so it references the movie, right? And we get this cool thing of, like, oh, everything is, like, gray and dull, and then Thor breaks through with his power and restores color to the world as a signifier of his strength, right? I guess, yeah, that's, like, a good hype moment. But then this final frame is just kind of him standing there and pointing, without really doing anything. So, like, this could really do with a much bigger touch-up to make it impactful and powerful. because and that's could be anything from, like, again, more extreme for shortening and distension into the camera, changing the angle a little bit, giving him a more extreme or dynamic pose, anything like that would be good. Because the fact that this is just, like, he's almost leading into it with a kind of One Punch Man zoom, right? Like, it's almost like that iconic One Punch Man zoom where it's right before he throws the one punch, right? Where he's distorting into the camera and you're, like, really focusing on the fist or the hammer in this case. But then the final frame of it is just not strong enough to really be hype. So, yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's a lot of cool shit happening in this one. Like, the way that the triangle on the chest lights up first here, right? The way that they're using the lightning to lead his movements. Like, pay attention when he dashes up into the air here, right? Like, the way the lightning leads up, draws the attention to the hammer, it sort of starts glowing. Again, I feel like the drawing at the end here could be pushed more. I think you could really... And that's something that's true for a lot of them, right? Like, a lot of them, you could push the drawing a little harder. I'm thinking of, like, compare and contrast with... Compare and contrast with the Spidey MVP, right? How much distortion, like how deep into the camera he goes, like how much he's really mimicking those comic book poses, relative to how restrained the final frames of these MVPs are relative to that, right? I think, again, you could push it a lot more, but I do really like that here we get the moment of the strike, right? Like, this is the moment when the hammer connects and all of the lightning sparks everywhere. That, to me, feels much more powerful, much more dynamic, than sort of being halfway through the swing. So I quite like this. I really like the way that the fucking white sash lights up. That's very striking. Genuinely quite like this skin. I think this skin is pretty cool. Again, no idea what the context is, but, you know. T-posing for dominance. I do kind of like this as his default emote, that he just barely doesn't do anything. He just kind of spins the hammer a couple of times and then stands. That has some character. Like, that says something about who Thor is as a person, right? That it's just like, well, I'm fucking waiting. Are we gonna fight or what? Like, that's kind of the vibe there. Okay, let's see. Kind of low damage, but I guess he's like a vanguard. I like that. I like that he has to spin the hammer before he really gets the dash. That's very good. Because that was originally the thing. Like, originally Thor couldn't, like, just fly. He had to throw the hammer and then, like, hold on to it, and then the hammer would drag him through the sky. And he would just continuously throw it in whatever direction he wanted to go, which I thought was always a very fun method of traversal. Although, in reality, the way that it's portrayed in most of his incarnations, it's just that he can fly.
Lightning confinement.
Oh, he literally does the fucking Super Saiyan hair? Okay, that kind of rules, actually. Literally has the fucking standing hair glowing. That's kind of cute. Yeah, throw as he should. Right, so that's Thor Force, and then that gives you bonus health and stuff. Okay. And that's the resurrection thing that she has. Fair enough. Thor, you're okay. Now, the big boy. Oh, shit! Wait a minute. Hang on. That ruled. Okay, that fucking... Like, I know that doesn't matter for what he's like in game, right? But that, as an intro... Like, the fuck... Okay, that's pretty good. Like, because if you're doing Venom, right? Like, again, if it's Venom you're doing, and you're doing full Venom, then you gotta go with the fucking... Like, you gotta go with this bullshit. Because, like, this is the King in Black, right? Like, it's supposed to be like that. Now, I know you're hiding something back there, Eddie. People have been talking about it in the comments, and now I'm curious to see if the rumors are true. Yeah, no. Oh, they weren't lying. Oh, yeah, no. That's where all the cake is. Venom has been eating everyone's ass and adding it to his... I don't 100%, I didn't 100% mean to phrase it like that, but Venom, like, because he eats brains, right? So he's been eating everyone's ass, and he's been adding the bulk to his own. Like, okay, yeah, no, yeah. The cake is there. Undeniably, the cake is present with Venom. And I'm not mad about, like, that. In seriousness, and I don't know that that's what they're going for with this version of Venom, but, like, there's been some interesting work done with Venom in terms of, like, establishing him as like exploring, like, the queer dynamic of the symbiosis relationship, right? Like the dynamic that Eddie and Venom, or Eddie and the symbiote together are Venom, right? Like, it's kind of like that they're... Again, I haven't really read a lot of recent Venom runs. Most of what I've seen is, like, discussion by other people citing individual comic pages and things like that. But, like, the connection between Eddie and the symbiote being specifically a kind of homoerotic one, or at least one that has the qualities of being romantic, right? That's something that the comics have been exploring and, like, making quite explicit as a part not just of their subtext, but the actual text of the story, right? And that's something that, like, sort of mimetically gave the Venom movies, like, a lot of their fan base was a whole bunch of queer people who saw the relationship between the symbiote and Eddie and kind of went, oh, like, they're fucked up trash boyfriends, right? Like, that there was this queer platonic dynamic between them that's like this. There's not really a heterosexual explanation for any of this, not that it's necessarily a homosexual, but, like, that it's definitely there's something queer going on here somehow, right? And, like, I assume that's not why they decided to give him, like, big bara muscles and magnificent cake for the purposes of this incarnation of him, but honestly, who knows? Because, like, Venom at this point is kind of for the girls and gays, in a lot of ways. Like, not always, not in every incarnation, but, like, there's a big chunk of fan base for the symbiotes and for Venom specifically that is, like, in that community. And so I wonder if this is, like, a little, like, this... Whoever... It does feel like whoever designed this iteration of Venom, at least, like, whichever 3D artist was doing the immaculate sculpting work on this one had an appreciation, right? It feels like whoever designed this version of him was like, he needs like the globes, he needs, like, the jiggly. The only fucking go when he arches his back to do his shout, like, the way that ass just inflates, like, pay attention, do your emote, right? That's amazing. That's fantastic. The only way it could be funnier is if the ass cheeks had jiggle physics. That's the only thing that could make it funnier. It does feel like there's like, whoever designed Venom thinks Venom is hot, right? It certainly does feel that way. And that's not just because of the ass cheeks. Like, there is a certain... Because we talked about this before with the Marvel Rivals characters, right? Like, let's just use Spider-Man as the easy example. His physique, right, is very, like, rocky and carved, right? And that's the case for a lot of the characters, is you have these very, like, flat color surfaces, like, very carved out of granite aesthetics around the muscles and things like that. Venom is a little bit interesting in that regard. God, that's still fucking cool. In that, looking at him, a lot of him doesn't feel so much like it's carved out of granite. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel in the same way like it's carved out of stone, so much as it feels like this is all coiled tensed up, like just knots and knots of like muscle and like tentacles wrapping up over each other. Especially the legs, right? Like the way that they bulge, you almost look like he's got a million tumors down there. Like it looks fucked up. It looks a little bit fucked up and weird. And there is some of that like chiseling happening, especially under those. Like it's not just the ass; he's got tits to match. Like that's not just pecs. That's man titties, right? Like that's, and specifically the kind of man titties that you get from people who really appreciate man titties. It feels like it was designed somewhat along those lines, right? Because, like, Venom has always been a chunky, bulky big boy, right? Like, that's always been the thing. Like, that's part of the contrast between him and Spider-Man, right? That Spider-Man is lithe and agile and kind of sleek and small, and then Venom is just this enormous... He's a dark mirror of Spider-Man, right? So he's this enormous, chunky powerhouse of a thing that embodies, like, all the worst qualities, well, worst and best qualities of Eddie Brock. As this thing which merely does violence and consumes, right? As opposed to Spider-Man, who's like, has this principle, right? And there is a little bit of that chiseling, but he feels much more organic than the physique of someone like Spider-Man. This feels much more like flesh and blood. This feels much more like he's not like an impossible superhero chiseled from stone, so much as he is this... like coiled mass of muscle fibers. I like what they're doing with the neck here a lot. Especially, again, pay attention during the emote, the way that it elongates and like stretches the profile and like really, yeah, like I like the fucking, like really leaning into the alien thing there a lot. I like that the mouth is basically splitting the entire head in half. Again, like, and there's, like, a character with a tongue like Venom's. There's no way not to make that horny. Like, you can't. There is no non-horny way to render a character. Like, there's no way to render a character like that someone will not be going into, like, erotic conniptions over. Just isn't possible. Same thing with a huge-ass... Like, the monster fuckers, the ones who aren't, like, just, oh, I'm such a monster fucker, I like the vampire. Like, the grody monster fuckers, this is kind of their thing. And again, this feels like it was designed by someone who kind of knows that. Like, like, not that I don't know anything that went on in their head. Like, I don't know if they find Venom hot. I don't know if they are a monster fucker or whatever. But it feels like someone who understands the assignment in that sense, right? Like, of, like, what does a certain subgroup of Venom fans really like about him? Well... like, fat cake, chunky titties, and a tongue that can do a million things to you while he's practically got his entire head wrapped around your... Well, you can finish that sentence on your own. And I know you will. Same thing with, like, the rippling back muscles up here. Like, really, like, bulking that shit the fuck up. And it's an interesting balance. We talked about this a little bit previously, and we talked about, like, the difference between rendering something as a sex fantasy versus a power fantasy, right? Like, where the framing and aesthetic of how the character is presented makes a big difference as to whether the character reads as a sex fantasy or as a power fantasy. Now, the boundary between those two that I presented there, I tried to present a very clear differentiation so you could see what the difference is between the two things, but it's not always, like, a hard boundary. It's not always something that can just be, like, cut in half, because plenty of people find... there are plenty of people who find, like, the Frank Castle hyper chunky, super roided up, like, really big and chunky. Like, this body type primarily is a power fantasy, right? And it's a power fantasy for people who idolize a very specific kind of, like, physical masculinity, right? Like, that's the primary thing. But there are also people who get off to that, right? Like, there are definitely also people who find this kind of thing sexy. I don't think Frank was designed to appeal to them, though, right? Like, that would be my argument, is I don't think in the design of this character, the way he reads, the way he feels to look at, it doesn't feel like whoever designed him was designing him with the idea that someone would get off to this, so much as they were designing him with the idea that someone would find this, like, really cool, right? Venom sort of walks the boundary there a little bit because he's definitely a power fantasy. He's got the big, the big chunky claw fingers, and there's so much, like, rippling muscle that's, like, so clearly about, like, I can tear you apart with my hands, right? That's so much about the presentation. But then, given that he is a monster character, given that he has all of that tongue and all of that ass, then the whole I could tear you apart with my hands also becomes, I could tear you apart with my hands, right? The difference between that as a threat and that as a promise, right? He's definitely walking the line where, like, I have to assume he was designed first and foremost as a power fantasy because of what Marvel Rivals is and what it's supposed to do and what all the other characters in Marvel Rivals are designed to be, right? Like, must be designed as a power fantasy first. But I would not say that an argument that he was designed as a sex fantasy at least second. I wouldn't argue against that at all. It really, like, it's the cake. Like, you can't put that amount of fat, juicy ass on a character who's otherwise so gnarly and then be like, oh no, like, you are not supposed to find that hot. What, are you crazy? No. No, what? Sexy? No! Right? Like, you kind of can't get away from that ass, right? As a constituent of his character design, you just can't get away from it, right? And it's like, it informs the reading of the rest of the character design. It also doesn't hurt that Venom is, like, permanently slippery and a little bit wet, and he has tentacles. Again, these are things that, like, yeah, they are power fantasies also, but besides being that, does he have a skin that gives him even more cake? That would be very funny. Oh, anti-venom is there too. No, same amount of cake. Oh, he has one that takes it away. Well, this is default the worst skin now. Anti-venom. What the fuck's the lore of the anti... Because I know the anti-symbiotes were like, they were specifically, it was Mr. Negative, right? Got a hold of some Venom symbiote or a seed of the Venom symbiote and infused it with his Mr. Negative energy, and then that created anti-venom, which was like a very controllable version of the symbiote suit that doesn't have an independent consciousness, that then went on to, like, try and fight and kill Eddie. And then there was a whole bunch of other anti-symbiotes, and then they were mass-produced for a while, I think. Something King in Black happened, and then that, like, the Venom universe became all cosmic about it, and the heavy metal album cover, cool. I should really read the whole King in Black storyline at some point, because I've heard it's really good. And I'm interested in it, because, like, it really... Taking Venom and just, like, going, yeah, know what, we're just gonna make this into a fucking, Iron Maiden metal album cover. Like, full stop, and just lean into that cheese completely. That appeals to me a lot with a character as inherently kind of silly as Venom. Somehow, though, weirdly, even though it's just kind of a palette swap in the simplest way possible, something about the anti-Venom suit is, like, less horny to me? I guess it's because because it's the big black suit, it reads more like a latex suit, right? Like a bondage sort of thing, whereas this maybe kind of doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, like the anti-symbiotes are kind of cool and kind of dumb at the same time. This is a solid enough skin, though. Although I really do kind of feel like the color scheme doesn't work as well on this Venom design as the black and white does. The white and black just doesn't... Yeah, something about the way the mouth renders against the white with the red tongue and the teeth still being blackened. Or the teeth specifically being blackened. Like, then the teeth should be pure black, like, if that's what you're going with. Yeah, something about it just doesn't work quite as well. I don't know. I'm having some trouble articulating exactly why. But, Anyway, let's look at this. Space Knight. Venom Space Knight from 2015, where he was a knight in... okay. I mean, Again, I have not kept up with the Venom comics. I have no idea what the context for this is, just that this looks really boring. This really does not look like Venom in any meaningful way to me. This just looks like a generic space goon. Like, this looks like a guy that some sci-fi hero would have to fight in, like, a Space Coliseum subplot or something. This looks like a henchman. This looks like, yeah, like, really not seeing any Venom in this character. Like, they're trying to hint at it with the sort of, kind of, a little bit spider design on the chest, but, like, this just doesn't look like Venom at all. Like, even a little bit. This just looks like a guy in a power suit, so... yeah, this kind of sucks. This genuinely kind of sucks. Not just because of the ass nerf, but, like, just... how am I supposed... How is this supposed to be, like, playing Venom in any way? Again, I don't know the context of the comic there, but... nah. Let me change out of that costume, too. Yeah, like, fucking... again, the thing I talked about, like, doing the extremely strong foreshortening and, like, really leaning into the fuck... like... that's a strong-ass fucking pose right there. Like, that... God, just like the Spider-Man pose. Like, they really... the Spider-Man characters, they seem to get the really good ones. That's a really fucking good one. Like, with the tendril and, like, the claw reaching deep into the camera like that. And the extreme foreshortening. That fucking slaps, man. And that bit there, again... with the tongue, there's no way to make it not horny when he has a tongue like that. There's no way. There just isn't. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Okay, that does make it a little more Venom-y. If he can, like, open the mask and, like, actually get the tongue out, and he can do symbiote stuff through the suit. I guess that makes it a little more Venom-y, but still boring. Just not interesting at all. Goon, mid-boss, nothing. So I like the concept of this emote, because the concept of this emote seems to be, like, having Eddie Venom, like, interact with the symbiote a little bit, right? Like, the symbiote acting as a kind of character on him, and there's that little, like, sort of chatting to it. Like, that could be played out, like, could be expanded as a much more interesting emote, like, if it was a thing of, like, the mask recedes, and then we see Eddie's head, and then he's, like, talking to himself for a second, like, that kind of thing. That would be very cool for Venom emotes, like ones where he's arguing with himself, or the Eddie and the symbiote bits argue or bicker with each other just for a second. That would be pretty cool as emotes, but this is maybe a little bit basic. Okay, let's look at the abilities. Okay, but if he can't eat someone's head, then what's the point? Oh, does that fully work like Spider-Man's? Because this is one thing that was lost, right? Like, I had the recording of one of the episodes of this that was on the Discord, and that got lost. And in that episode, I was like, I saw Spider-Man's abilities, right? And I saw, hang on, he's got a web swing. And I went into the practice tool and actually played around with it for a bit. And I was so delighted because it was so much fucking fun. And I'm very happy that Venom can do the same thing. It seems like, anyway. Not quite on the same countdown as Spidey? Because Spider-Man... oh, not quite. Spider-Man has multiple charges, so he can do it, like, multiple times. Venom has a cooldown fully. Okay. Oh, that just makes him hard to kill. Cool. He has tentacles that can wrap you up and hold you in... again, there's no way not to make it horny. Yes, very good. Wall crawling. I am happy with that. Oh, they are doing the null thing. So they are doing like the King in Black thing. Because I know about null. I remember specifically because Sir Superhero told me about it. Like I commented some questions about like the Venom shit on his TikTok, and he made some videos responding to it. So I know some stuff about null and the things that are going on with him. Okay, fair enough. The artists knew what they were doing. I have to believe. I have to believe they knew. I have to believe that. Like, there's no way. This doesn't happen by accident, surely. Okay. Winter Soldier. I mean, yeah. Sure. Sure, why not? Yeah, I guess. I mean, what do you do with Winter Soldier, really? Let's just jump to the cosmetics immediately, actually. Those men were Bucky Barnes, and Bucky Barnes is gone. Now I'm the man who's gonna... Okay. I guess this is a... other version of Bucky who's like, not Bucky. I don't know. No idea what the lore is there. But yeah, so like... I mean, the thing about Winter Soldier, right, like, is that the main interesting thing about Winter Soldier is the cybernetic arm, right? And it has, like, the old Soviet star thing on it and things like that. And that's like, oh, okay. And then what do you do with the rest of him, right? Like, what do you really do with the rest of his character design? Because, like, I'll be fully honest, I wouldn't know really what to do with him either. So he's wearing... soldier stuff. He's got a vest that's like army green-ish colors, and he's got a shirt on that's tight and has pockets and things, and there's some boots, and he's got a couple of pouches for bullets, probably. A lightsaber on his hip. That would be cool. That's not what it is. And there's a strap around his arm to pad against something or other. I'm sure that's a thing that is useful for something in real life. And it's like, he has the arm, and he has the cool mask, and that's kind of it. And he's got a scar over his eye, I guess. I mean, that's something. Sure. I genuinely don't really know what to say, because, like, yeah, I could call it boring, but that's kind of the point. It's kind of the point that he is just kind of a guy with a cybernetic arm, right? Like, the point is, like, Bucky Barnes is, like, one of the, like, Marvel doesn't really do the sidekick thing that often anymore, but back in the golden age of comics, with Captain America fighting the Axis powers, he had, like, Bucky Barnes as, like, the child sidekick, which, like, the point of the child sidekick is that that's a character that, like, if it's maybe a little bit hard as, like, an 8-year-old to imagine yourself being Batman or Captain America, but you can imagine yourself being Captain America's best friend. Right. You can imagine yourself being Batman's best friend, who goes on adventures with Batman, and you're very useful, and even if you're not the main hero, by golly, you still have the heart and the spirit and all of it, and everyone and Captain America says, oh, you're my most valuable ally, Bucky, and that's the point of it, right? And so Winter Soldier is like, oh, Bucky Barnes was taken, and he was corrupt, is sort of supposed to be like, oh, no, actually, war fucks you up kind of vibe, right? Like, that's sort of supposed to be the point, is like, maybe having Bucky Barnes be like, Captain America's child soldier friend, maybe that's not going to turn out very well for him, actually. Maybe that would lead to bad things happening to the guy. The movies didn't go that far. Bucky is not a child in the movies, but, like, as I recall, at least, that was kind of the point of the Winter Soldier, right? Like, was this thing of, like, you took a child to war and look what happened, right? And so he is kind of supposed to be just a man, right? Just a guy who would have been normal under other circumstances, but then some fucked up shit happened to him, right? And so this is kind of, like, from that perspective, this is kind of, let me actually look at the lore here. Blah, 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 thought to kill in action, recovered by enemy forces as ultimate assassin, blah, blah, broke his conditioning. During an operation, Hydra scientist rescued by Hawkeye, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so he went through the whole Hydra thing, and then he went through the whole Hydra thing again, only to be rescued by Hawkeye and 2099 Captain America who gifted an upgraded arm to their former partner. Why an upgraded arm? I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure, why not? Like, because he needs to have the ability to throw energy projectiles with it. But then why would they still put the red star on it? Like, if this is a new arm, if this is an up, why would you put the red star on it still? Is Captain America 2099 a communist? Is that what? Like, yes, we must put red star on arm for glory of Soviet Union. Like, why is... Okay, doesn't matter. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Well, that's a nothing burger. That's a really... Like, the tentacle shit with the arm is kind of cool, but then he's just... I am going to turn around and point my gun downwards, which is... Okay. Yeah, that's really boring. I never asked for this. No, that really is some fucking Adam Jensen fucking... Yeah, not much to say about that either. Like, again, the vibe with this guy is he's kind of supposed to be a bit boring, right? He's kind of not supposed to be that much special. I do feel like for Marvel Rivals, maybe making him special in some way would have been fun, but on the other hand, this does make him unique. Like, he is by far the most just a guy looking ass motherfucker in the whole lineup, so it does give him his own unique aesthetic space within the context of the game, I guess.
Armed and dangerous! Again! Again!
Okay, so it's like it's a cybernetic tentacle arm, which that really should be hornier than it actually looks like it is. Get over here! Okay. Yeah, no, like, yeah, he's just kind of boring. I'm sorry, I don't have a strong conclusion here. This is just a really boring character design on purpose, it seems like. It achieves what it sets out to do, I think. Which leaves us with the best at what he do. I'm sorry, what? No, hang on, wait a minute, you need to show me that again. Are you serious? He goes Super Saiyan? That's... And then when he... The hair... Literally, the hair... Literally, he literally had an aura. Like, he had the fucking Super Saiyan aura. And then his hair got, like, large and pointy. And then when he... And then the hair... You made Wolverine a Super Saiyan! You made Wolverine a Super... Hang on. Hold on. It has to be the ult, right? I guess not. Berserker Rage. There's the aura, but I guess he doesn't transform. Yeah, the fastball special is there. Okay, so there must be some trigger that causes him to transform then, which I guess is if he has the Berserker Rage up and then he uses a specific ability, then that'll put him into the empowered state or something. It's just just the hair just kind of like zoop. Like, his hair extends out of his head like his claws? Is that what I'm supposed to... Literally, that the hair is like the claws and it, like, pokes out. That is... I'm stuck between wanting to find that impossibly cringe and incredibly awesome. I genuinely don't know how I feel about that. Because that's so dumb. But it's so cool. But it's so dumb. That is so stupid. It's kind of awesome. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know how I feel about that hair. I like that he's hairy. Like, I like that they didn't turn him smooth in any way, shape, or form. That this is Harry Logan McHair with a lot of the body hair. I like that. That also, again, if they had turned him completely smooth, right? Like, they'd clean shaved him everywhere else, but then he had the hair extension gimmick, that wouldn't have worked. That only works if he is a tremendous, like 30% along the way to becoming a furry. That's the only way that works. So we got the dog tags because, of course, Logan, ancient past, soldier, blah, blah, blah. We've got the fucking belt buckle because Logan, and I genuinely really like the belt buckle. I like that as a bit of personality because Wolverine has always had personality, right? Like, he's always been the guy who's like, yeah, I'll wear a fucking belt buckle with my initials on it, right? Because I'm the best at what I do. Right, like that has always kind of been part of Wolverine's deal, is that he has a little bit of that charm, a little bit of that, you know, sort of cringe-ass dad rebelliousness to him, right? That's always been part of the charm. Same thing with the fucking boots, like, and then we have the X-Men shit, right? Like, we have, like, the yellow jacket with, like, the blue. That sort of evokes the classic color scheme, but without fully putting him in the costume, which again I like with the sleeves rolled up kind of thing, that he will wear the silly superhero costume, but then also there's that little streak of like, I'm just a man who's the best at what I do, right? That Wolverine, certainly it depends on the depiction of him, obviously, right? But Wolverine has always had a... I'm remembering the fucking 2000s, early 2000s movies, right? Where, like, I think it's the first one where there is that really shitty, annoying line of like, you guys really go out dressed like that? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex? Oh. Like, the movie sort of rolling its eyes at its own premise, right? Whereas, like, we're not like the lame X-Men from the comics that have, like, colorful costumes. We're the cool X-Men who are all dressed like we're in the Matrix, yeah. That sort of smug self-regard that it had. I like that this doesn't do any of that. Like, it's big, bright, colorful, yellow-blue comic book costume, but it has a better mix, right? Like, where it allows Wolverine to both be wearing the silly costume that's iconic to him, but also there's a little bit of that distancing, right? He's not fully wearing the X-Men uniform, because Wolverine is always a little bit of that independent spirit thing got going on, right? I like that. Like, I like this as a costume for him. I genuinely do. I mean, I guess that's kind of the version from Deadpool and Wolverine. I feel like Hugh Jackman had more facial hair than that, a little bit, but sure. I guess. I mean, this is just essentially an excuse to put him in the classic costume, right? I don't think there's a lot more to it than this. Like, yes, it's Deadpool and Wolverine version of the character, but it's just kind of an excuse to give him a version of the classic costume. A little bit of a missed opportunity with the palette swap. I would have kind of liked it if the palette swap, they got rid of all the X things. Right? Partly also, I didn't even see this. Quitting the X-Men, Logan's been there, done that multiple times, right? Like, it's... if this is supposed to be like Logan when he, like, I don't want to run with the X-Men anymore. Like, I feel like the palette swap should have taken the X things off in the texture somehow. Gotten rid of them. But as a palette swap goes, this is like pretty good, actually. Because again, the point of this is, if this is like Wolverine when he's not with the X-Men, of course he's rejecting the colorful costumes, right? Like, of course he's rejecting all the superhero weirdness and going for something more earth tone, more normal, more down-to-earth kind of vibe. Yeah, like, that makes perfect sense for him. I still keep going back to the fucking Super Saiyan thing. Yeah, no, they're not subtle about it either. Ow. They're not subtle about it either. Like, they're pretty clear about what they're doing. Because he jumps into the air. And he literally does a fucking Kaioken. Like, yeah, no, I sure, why not? I don't mind it. Like, it's pretty fucking cool. I guess. I'm still so in two minds about it. Because it's, I want to find this so cheesy that it's fucking cool. But on the other hand, the hair just looks so dumb. So it's not the car scene. Okay. Because, like, you know the car scene in the forest from that movie? You know that's a sex scene, right? Like, you know that, like, the subtext of that scene is that Wolverine and Deadpool are fucking, right? That's what that, it's a hate fuck. That's what that is. So for a second with the cars, like, hang on, are they doing a reference to that? No, they're doing a thing to another thing. That would have been funny. Would have been funny if that was what they were doing. It does go pretty hard, this thing, though. Like, the final flash frame with, like, the double swipes across the screen. That's a pretty solid final frame for it. Like, this is pretty okay as well. It is a little bit too ballet dancer-ish. Like, the whole spin and then you follow the sort of backhand of the claw across. It feels a little bit too elegant, a little bit too... Yeah, where the idea with Wolverine is that he's, like, wild and, like, raw and, like, uncontrolled. Which is where I feel like the final pose on this one is stronger. Right, because that's more wild and, like, swiping madly in front of himself. Where the spin and the whole of that, the ending of that is a little bit too poised, I think. I like the swipe across, it's just, yeah. Yes, no, yeah, like, that has to be the emote. Like, that just kind of isn't a choice. You have to do that one. Like, he has to have it. You can't have Wolverine without that one. Cute. I just can't with the it's not just that the hair looks a little silly, right? Like that it looks a little, it's maybe a little bit too much. It's the way that it just kind of retracts into his head. Like it just kind of gets slurped into his scalp somehow. The idea is that it's all of this hair stands up, right? Like that's the idea of it. That's all of his hair is just standing up, but that's not what it looks like. It looks like it just kind of, it's just kind of like someone with a straw inside of his scalp just kind of goes and just slurps it back down. I don't know. There's something about that that just like, it just feels weird to look at and makes it kind of undercuts the coolness of it for me a little bit, but on the other hand, it's so fucking cool. I don't know. I don't 100% know what my take is there. Maybe that it's really, really cool in concept, but then the execution is just a little weird in a couple of spaces. Yeah, sure. That's the conclusion. I guess we'll go with that, because now we've spent like an hour and a half on like 5 dudes. Because my yap is a terminal condition that's only accelerating, I guess. Yeah. Let's see. Ow. Ow, I had to type something and my thumb did not like that. Merch shop. I have it. You can buy things on it. You probably know this by now, but I do have to advertise it. Please consider buying something if you want to, or don't buy something if you don't want to. These are the options that you have available to you. I think you might have known that already, but these are things you can wear on you if you would like to. And you can also, like, if there's something I've said or some silly thing that I've said in these videos that you would like printed on something, let me know. I can print it on something, and then I can sell the thing that it's printed on to you, so you can have the printed version of the thing that I said. Anyway, also business. Channel memberships have been enabled on this channel, right? Mostly it's for if you want to get into the Discord. I'll post some... I'll post a free link underneath this video. Actually, I'll do that. If you want to get into the Discord, so you don't have to pay for it. It's not... The Discord is not really paywalled so much as it's like, I only post public links sometimes, because it makes it much harder for people to raid the server. It makes it much easier to moderate the server rather than having an open server. I've had that before. It did not go well. So the join membership button is basically there if you just want to get in now and you don't want to wait for it and you don't want to roll the dice on it. So you can do that if you want to. You'll also get access if you support me on Patreon. You also get it if you send me a donation on Coffee. So long as your Discord account is linked up to those websites so that the bot can actually, you know, give you access and stuff. So you can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. It's completely okay. Thank you. Bye.